Okay, continuing book 5, page 157. Where are we in book 5? Where's book 5 set?
Isn't there that island that smells like that thing?
Yes, this beautiful smelling island, Calypso's Island. Yes, its name is Ogygia Island. You don't need to know the name. But yes, we're on Ogygia, which is where the nymph with the lovely braids, Calypso, lives. Ogygia. And it's on Ogygia, besides Calypso. Who was that? Odysseus, right. That's why Homer's bringing us here to Ogygia. And what is happening here in book 5? Odysseus is on Ogygia with Calypso. Who else shows up? Hermes, sent by Zeus. Why? 157. Why does Zeus send Hermes to Ogygia?
Because she can't be with a mortal man.
To tell Calypso that this isn't going to work out, you need to let him go home. She's pretty upset about this, but she tells Odysseus anyway. And where did we first see Odysseus? So he's on Ogygia. Where is he, though, on this island?
On the beach, like towards the way there.
Right, he's on the beach, looking out over the sea towards his home. And what is he doing there as he looks up there? He cries, yes. See Odysseus weeping. Yes. As we saw Telemachus weeping when his father was mentioned back in book 3. All right. So Calypso says on 157 that she's giving in to Zeus, ordering her, not that she has much choice. So line 190 towards the bottom of the page, we'll pick up there. Long enduring Odysseus shuddered at that and broke out in a sharp flight of protest. Passage home? Never. Surely you're plotting something else, goddess, urging me in a raft to cross the ocean's mighty gulfs, so vast, so full of danger, not even deep-sea ships can make it through, swift as they are, and buoyed up by the winds of Zeus himself. I won't set foot on a raft until you show good faith, until you consent to swear, goddess, a binding oath you'll never plot some new intrigue to harm me. He was so intense, the lustrous goddess smiled, stroked him with her hand, savored his name, and chided, "Ah, what a wicked man you are, and never at a loss. What a thing to imagine, what a thing to say. Earth be my witness, the vaulting sky above, and the dark, cascading waters of the Styx. I swear, by the greatest, grimmest oath that binds the happy gods, I will never plot some new intrigue to harm you. Never. All I have in mind and devised for you are the very plans I'd fashion for myself if I were in your straits. My every impulse bends to what is right. Not iron, trust me, the heart within my breast. I am all compassion." How does Odysseus respond? Calypso saying, "You can go home now."
He doesn't trust her.
He doesn't trust her. He thinks it's a trick. What does he ask her to do? He says, "I won't believe you until you do what?"
She shows good faith.
Right, she has to swear an oath that she's doing this in good faith. And she does swear this oath. She says she swears by the sky and the earth, and she also swears by the river Styx. What is the river Styx? Greek mythology. Where is it? The river Styx is in Hades, the underworld. It's one of the rivers of the underworld. And swearing by the Styx is the most serious oath that the gods make. They swear by the river Styx.
Why does that hold so much value?
That's a good question. Why does the Styx hold so much value? I don't know. The underworld plays a very prominent role in Greek religion. We'll see the underworld later in the book a couple of times. It's not a pleasant place. There are sort of some nicer parts to it, but it's not a pleasant place. Even the gods don't really like it. They don't go down there and visit. And Hades, the ruler of the underworld, is not a very nice guy either. What else are the gods? The gods don't really have a whole lot they can.
Does Hades hold like equivalent power to like almost high power like Zeus?
Yeah, so he's one of Zeus's brothers. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades are sort of the three most powerful of the gods. They're all brothers. So yes, what are the gods going to swear by? They can only swear by things that are above them. The Greek, Zeus, I guess, could swear to the sticks. The Greek gods. Remember, we talked a little bit about how the Greek gods are different from a Christian idea of God, for example. The Greek gods, they're not omniscient, they don't know everything, and they're not omnipotent, they're not all powerful. There's some things they can't do. And the biggest thing that they are incapable of doing is fighting against fate, especially when it concerns death. That fate really rules the universe, even more so than the gods. There's a certain destiny, a certain way that things are going to turn out, and no one can really change it. And it doesn't only affect men; it also affects the Greek gods. That ultimately they aren't in charge either. They have a lot more power than humans do, but they're not omnipotent. And so possibly here it's because the Styx is connected with the underworld, connected with death, connected with fate. That's what they swear by. The gods are usually described as deathless, athanatoi in Greek, the deathless ones. And so to swear by this river of death, that's a strong thing for God to associate himself with. All right, so she makes this oath. We'll continue, middle of 158. And lustrous Calypso quickly led the way as he followed in the footsteps of the goddess. They had reached the arching cavern, man and god as one, and Odysseus took the seat that Hermes just left, while the nymph set out before him every kind of food and drink that mortal men will take. Calypso sat down face to face with the king, and the women served her nectar and ambrosia. They reached out for the good things that lay at hand. And when they'd had their fill of food and drink, the lustrous one took up a new approach. So then, royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, man of exploits, still eager to leave at once and hurry back to your own home, your beloved native land? Good luck to you even so. Farewell. But if you only knew down deep what pains are fated to fill your cup before you reach that shore, you'd stay right here, preside in our house with me, and be immortal. Much as you long to see your wife, the one you pine for all your days, and yet I just might claim to be nothing less than she, neither in face nor figure. Hardly right, is it, for mortal woman to rival immortal goddess? How? In build, in beauty? Great goddess, worldly Odysseus answered. Don't be angry with me, please. All that you say is true, how well I know. Look at my wise Penelope. She falls short of you, your beauty, stature. She is mortal after all, and you never age or die. Nevertheless, I long, I pine all my days to travel home suffered, labored long and hard by now in the waves and wars. Add this to the total. Bring the trial on. Even as he spoke, the sun set and the darkness swept the earth. And now, withdrawing into the cavern's deep recesses, long in each other's arms, they lost themselves in love. So Calypso has been forced by Zeus to let Odysseus leave. But what else does she try? Try to convince him to stay. And how does she try to convince him to stay? Fear of what?
What might happen once he leaves.
Right. She says, you're not going to have such an easy time getting home. You might want to stay here after all. And what's the other thing? Not only is the journey going to be bad, but also what?
Life is not as good as
Right. She says, I'm immortal. I'm very beautiful. Can your wife really measure up to me? She's mortal. How can a mortal woman be as beautiful as a goddess? How does Odysseus respond to that? How do you respond to something like that? How does he respond at any rate?
He said that he was going to.
Right. He says, yes. My wise Penelope, she falls far short of you, your beauty, stature. She isn't as beautiful as you is. She is mortal after all. Nevertheless, I long to travel home and see the dawn of my return. Yes. He and Calypso spend one last night together. Then line 252, down towards the bottom of the page. When young dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, Odysseus quickly dressed himself in cloak and shirt, while the nymph slipped on a loose, glistening robe, filmy, a joy to the eye, and round her waist she ran a brocaded golden belt, and over her head a scarf to shield her brow, then turned to plan the great man's voyage home. She gave him a heavy bronze axe that fit his grip, both blades well honed, with a fine olive haft lashed firm to its head. She gave him a polished smoothing adze as well, and then she led the way to the island's outer edge where trees grew tall. Alders, black poplars, and firs that shot sky high. Seasoned for years, ideal for easy floating. Once she'd shown her guest where the tall timber stood, Calypso, the lustrous goddess, headed home again. He set to cutting trunks. The work was done in no time. 20 in all he felled. He trimmed them clean with his axe and split them deftly, trued them straight to the line. Meanwhile, the radiant goddess brought him drills. He bored through all his planks and wedged them snugly, knocking them home together, locked with pegs and joints. Broad in the beam and bottom, flat as a merchantman when a master shipwright turns out her hull. So broad the craft Odysseus made himself. Working away at speed, he put up half-decks pinned to close-set ribs, and a sweep of gunwales rounded off the sides. He fashioned the mast next, and sank its yard in deep, and added a steering oar to hold her right on course. Then he fenced her stem to stern with twigs and wicker, bulwark against the sea surge, floored with heaps of brush. And lustrous Calypso came again now with bolts of cloth to make the sail, and he finished that off expertly too. Braces, sheet, and brails he rigged all. On the 5th, the lovely goddess launched him from her island. Once she had bathed and decked him out in fragrant clothes. And Calypso stowed 2 skins aboard. Dark wine in one, the larger one held water. Added a sack of rations filled with her choicest meats to build his strength, and summoned a wind to bear him onward, fair and warm. The wind lifting his spirits high, royal Odysseus spread sail, gripping the tiller seated astern. And now the master mariner steered his craft, sleep never closing his eyes, forever scanning the stars, the Pleiades and the plowmen late to set, and the great bear that mankind also. The lustrous goddess told him to keep hard to port as he cut across the sea. In 17 days he sailed, making headway well. On the 18th, shadowy mountains slowly loomed, the Phaeacians' island reaching toward him now, over the misty breakers, rising like a shield. But now upon the sea, and it made his fury boil even more. He shook his head and rumbled to himself, outrageous! Look how the gods have changed their minds about Odysseus. While I was off with my Ethiopians, just look at him there, nearing Phaeacia's shores where he's fated to escape his noose of pain that's held him until now. Still, my hopes ride high. I'll give that man his swamping fill of trouble. With that, he rammed the clouds together, both hands clutching his trident, churned the waves into chaos, whipping all the gales from every quarter, shrouding over in thunderheads the earth and sea at once, and night swept down from the sky. East and south winds clashed, and the raging west and north sprung from the heavens, roiled, heaving breakers up. And Odysseus' knees quaked, his spirit too. Numb with fear, he spoke to his own great heart. Wretched man, what becomes of me now at last? I fear the nymph foretold it all too well. On the high seas, she said, before I can reach my native land, I'll fill my cup of pain. And now look, it all comes to pass. What monstrous clouds, King Zeus crowning the whole wide heaven black, turning the seas in chaos, gales blasting, raging around my head from every quarter. My death plunge in a flash, it's certain now. 3, 4 times blessed my friends in arms who died on the plains of Troy those years ago, serving the sons of Atreus to the end. Would to God I'd die there too, and met my fate that day the Trojans, swarms of them, hurled at me with bronze spears, fighting over the corpse of proud Achilles. A hero's funeral then, my glory spread by comrades. Now, what a wretched death I'm doomed to die. At that, a massive wave came crashing down on his head, a terrific onslaught. Spinning his craft round and round, he was thrown clear of the decks, the steering oar wrenched from his grasp. And in one lightning attack, the brawling gale wind struck full force, snapping the mast mid-shaft and hurling the sail and sail-yard far across the sea. He went under a good long while, no fast way out, no struggling up from under the giant waves' assault. His clothing dragged him down, divine Calypso's gifts. But at last he fought his way to the surface, spewing bitter brine, streams of it pouring down his head. But half drowned as he was, he'd not forget his craft. He lunged after her through the breakers, laying hold and huddling amidships, fled the stroke of death. Pell-mell the rollers tossed her along down current, wild as the north wind tossing thistle along the fields at high harvest, dry stalks clutching each other tightly. So the gale winds tumbled her down the sea, this way, that way, now the south wind flinging her over to north to sport with, now the east wind giving her up to west, to harry on and on. So Odysseus, what do we see happening with Odysseus here?
He's having trouble now.
He's having trouble getting home. So he starts sailing, and he sails for a while, and then what happens?
Storm.
There's a storm. Where does the storm come from?
The east wind?
All the winds actually are involved. The east wind, the north wind, the west wind, the south wind. They're all involved. Why are all these winds involved? Why is this storm so terrible? Poseidon. Remember, Poseidon had been down in Ethiopia receiving this sacrifice. He's on his way home, and he sees Odysseus almost at the next island he's supposed to get to. So he creates this massive storm.
Wait, why does Poseidon do that?
Why does Poseidon do this? Why does Poseidon do this to Odysseus? Why is Poseidon angry with Odysseus? Homer mentioned his son. He blinded Poseidon's son. And we'll see that later. We're going to get a flashback.
Isn't that the thing going on?
Yes, a cyclops with one large eye. Odysseus blinded it. And so Poseidon is angry with Odysseus. We'll see that scene. We're going to have a big flashback. A lot of the travels that Odysseus has made up to this point. Yes. Before he goes out to sea, what does he do? So Calypso comes to him and she says, "You can go if you want to." And he says, "Yes, I do want to." What does he then do before he actually leaves? What does he need in order to go? What does Odysseus need in order to leave Calypso's island? What does he need to do first? Pages 159 and 160.
Oh, shit.
He needs a ship. So what does he do?
Yeah.
He builds one himself, alone in 4 days. Calypso has some high-quality tools for him to use, and he builds himself a ship. And then Calypso gives him clothing, gives him food, gives him wine and water for his voyage. Again, notice the parallels here between Odysseus and his son Telemachus, both setting out on these voyages, helped along by a goddess. Odysseus is more capable than Telemachus. Telemachus is not able to build his own ship in 4 days. Telemachus has to borrow one from someone else. We do see a parallel here. There are ways in which the two of them are quite similar. All right, and so it's a terrible, terrible storm. His boat is getting swamped. There are gigantic waves. And so here we'll continue to the bottom of 162, line 366 or so. But someone saw him, Cadmus' daughter with lovely ankles. I know, a mortal woman once tormented so. She broke from the waves like a sheer water on the wing, lit on the wreck and asked him kindly, "Ah, poor man, why is the god of earthquakes so dead set against you, strewing your way with such a crop of troubles? But he can't destroy you, not for all his anger. Just do as I say. You seem no fool to me. Strip off those clothes and leave your craft for the winds to hurl. And swim for it now you must. Strike out with your arms for landfall there. Phaeacian land where destined safety waits. Here, take this scarf, tie it around your waist. It is immortal. Nothing to fear now, neither pain nor death. But once you grasp the mainland with your hands, untie it quickly. Throw it into the wine-dark sea far from the shore. But you turn your head away." With that, the goddess handed him the scarf and slipped back in the heavy breaking seas like a sheer water once again, and a dark heaving billow closed above her. But battle-weary Odysseus weighed 2 courses, deeply torn, probing his fighting spirit. "Oh no, I fear another immortal weaves a snare to trap me, urging me to abandon ship. I won't, not yet. That shore's too far away. I glimpsed it myself, where she says refuge waits. No, here's what I'll do. It's what seems best to me. As long as the timbers cling and joints stand fast, I'll hold out aboard her and take a whipping. Once the breakers smash my craft to pieces, then I'll swim. No better plan for now." But just as great Odysseus thrashed things out, Poseidon, god of the earthquake, launched a colossal wave, terrible, murderous, arching over him, pounding down on him, hard as a windstorm, blasting piles of dry, parched chaff, scattering flying husks. So the long planks of the boat were scattered far and wide. But Odysseus leapt aboard one timber, and riding it like a plunging racehorse, stripped away his clothes, divine Calypso's gifts. And quickly tying the scarf around his waist, he dove headfirst into the sea, stretched his arms and stroked for life itself. But again, the mighty god of earthquake spied him, shook his head, and grumbled deep in his spirit. "Go, go, after all you've suffered, rove your miles of sea, till you fall in the arms of people loved by Zeus. Even so, I can hardly think you'll find your punishments too light." With that threat, he lashed his team with their long flowing manes, gaining Aegae port, where his famous palace stands. But Zeus's daughter Athena countered him at once. The rest of the winds she stopped right in their tracks, commanding them all to hush now, go to sleep. All but the boisterous north. She whipped him up, and the goddess beat the breakers flat before Odysseus, dear to Zeus, so he could reach the Phaeacians, mingle with men who love their long oars, and escape his death at last. Yes, but now, adrift on the heaving swells, 2 nights, 2 days, quite lost. Again and again the man foresaw his death. Then when dawn with her lovely locks brought on the 3rd day, the wind fell in an instant, all glazed to a dead calm, and Odysseus, scanning sharply, raised high by a groundswell, looked up and saw it, landfall just ahead. Joy, warm as the joy that children feel when they see their father's life dawn again, one who's lain on a sickbed racked with torment, wasting away slowly under some angry power's onslaught. Then what joy when the gods deliver him from his pains. So warm Odysseus' joy when he saw that shore, those trees, as he swam on, anxious to plant his feet on solid ground again. But just offshore, as far as a man's shout can carry, he caught the boom of a heavy surf on jagged reefs, roaring breakers crashing down on an iron-bound coast, exploding in fury, the whole sea shrouded, sheets of spray. No harbors to hold ships, no roadstead where they'd ride, nothing but jutting headlands, rib-toothed reefs, cliffs. Odysseus' knees quaked, and the heart inside him sank. He spoke to his fighting spirit, desperate, worse and worse. Now that Zeus has granted a glimpse of land beyond my hopes, now I've crossed this waste of water, the end in sight, there's no way out of the boiling surf. I see no way. Rugged reefs offshore, around them breakers roaring. Above them, a smooth rock face rising steeply. Look, and the surge too deep inshore, no spot to stand on my own 2 legs and battle free of death. If I clamber out, some big comber will hoist me, dash me against that cliff. My struggle's all a waste. If I keep on swimming down the coast, trying to find a sea bench shelving against the waves, a sheltered cove, I dread it. Another gale will snatch me up and haul me back to the fish-infested sea, retching in despair. Or a dark power will loose some monster at me rearing out of the waves, one of the thousands Amphitrite's breakers teem with. Well, I know the famous god of earthquakes hates my very name. Just as that fear went churning through his mind, a tremendous roller swept him toward the rocky coast where he'd have been flayed alive, his bones crushed, if the bright-eyed goddess Pallas had not inspired him now. He lunged for a reef, he seized it with both hands and clung for dear life, groaning until the giant wave surged past, and so he escaped its force. But the breaker's backwash charged into him full fury and hurled him out to sea. Like pebbles stuck in the suckers of some octopus dragged from its lair, so strips of skin, torn from his clawing hands, stuck to the rock face. A heavy sea covered him over. Then and there, unlucky Odysseus would have met his death against the will of fate. but the bright-eyed one inspired him yet again. Fighting out from the breakers pounding toward the coast, out of danger he swam on, scanning the land, trying to find a sea bench shelving against the waves, a sheltered cove. And stroking hard, he came abreast of a river's mouth, running calmly. The perfect spot, he thought. Free of rocks with a windbreak from the gales. As the current flowed, he felt the river's God and prayed to him in spirit, "Hear me, Lord, whoever you are. I've come to you, the answer to all my prayers. Rescue me from the sea Lord's curse. Even immortal gods will show man respect, whatever wanderer seeks their help. Like me, I throw myself on your mercy, on your current now. I have suffered greatly. Pity me, Lord." Your suppliant cries for help. So the man prayed, and the god stemmed his current, held his surge at once, and smoothing out the swells before Odysseus now, drew him safe to shore at the river's mouth. His knees buckled, massive arms fell limp. The sea had beaten down his striving heart. His whole body swollen, brine aplenty gushing out of his mouth and nostrils, breathless, speechless. There he lay with only a little strength left in him. Deathly waves of exhaustion overwhelmed him now. But once he regained his breath and rallied back to life, at last he loosed the goddess's scarf from his body, dropped it into the river flowing out to sea, and a swift current bore it far downstream, and suddenly Ino caught it in her hands. Struggling up from the banks, he flung himself in the deep reeds. He kissed the good green earth and addressed his fighting spirit desperate still. "Man of misery, what next? Is this the end? If I wait out a long tense night by the banks, I fear the sharp frost and the soaking dew together will do me in. I'm bone weary, about to breathe my last, and a cold wind blows from a river on toward morning. But what if I climb that slope, go for the dark woods and bed down in the thick brush? What if I'm spared the chill, fatigue, and a sweet sleep comes my way? I fear wild beasts will drag me off as quarry." But this was the better course that struck him now. He set out for the woods, and not far from the water found a grove with a clearing all around, and crawled beneath 2 bushy olives sprung from the same root, one olive wild, the other well-bred stock. No sodden, gusty winds could ever pierce them, nor could the sun's sharp rays invade their depths, nor could a downpour drench them through and through, so dense they grew together, tangling side by side. Odysseus crept beneath them, scraping up at once a good wide bed for himself with both hands. A fine litter of dead leaves had drifted in, enough to cover 2 men over, even 3, in the wildest kind of winter known to man. Long-enduring great Odysseus, overjoyed at the sight, bedded down in the midst and heaped the leaves around him. As a man will bury his glowing brand in black ashes, off on a lonely farmstead, no neighbors near to keep a spark alive, no need to kindle fire from somewhere else, so great Odysseus buried himself in leaves, and Athena showered sleep upon his eyes, sleep in a swift wave, delivering him from all his pains and labors. Blessed sleep that sealed his eyes at last. I think that section mostly speaks for itself.
That was the best book.
That one's really good. And we're going to get, so book 5 questions, let's have tomorrow. They're on Jupiter Grades. If you lost your copy, I think I have another couple copies. We'll go over them tomorrow. After this, we're going to skip to book 9, where we're going to get this flashback of Odysseus' journeys before he got to Calypso's island, after he left Troy. So we're going to skip books 6, 7, and 8 because we don't have time to read the whole thing. And 6, 7, and 8 are not as important to the storyline. I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you next. I'll go over it tomorrow also. But so basically, he arrives at this island. The people there take him in. They hold this big feast for him. And then as they're having this party, they ask their guests, they say, "Odysseus, why don't you tell us about your own adventures? We know about the Trojan War, but what we don't know is what happened to you." And so then for the next 4 books after that, 9, 10, 11, 12, Odysseus tells them the story of everything he's gone through from leaving Troy up to that point. So we get this flashback in the middle. So I want to read all of those, so we're going to skip 6, 7, 8.
So he's going to talk about how he killed Poseidon's son?
Exactly. We're going to get that and a whole lot of other